3 types of cars that every single man out there must own during his lifetime, including you. Yes, I'm talking to you. Okay, the first car that you should own, okay, and this is in no particular order, okay, the first car that every man should own at some point in his life is a luxury car, okay, whether it be Lamborghini, we'll go right from the top, Lambo, Ferrari, Mercedes Benz, Land Rover, Range Rover, right? Aston Martin, a luxury car. Every single one of you guys should own a luxury car at some point in your life. Why? Because it will be a mirror of your success. Okay, it doesn't mean you're materialistic. I know like in today's politically correct society, you don't need that car. Should be riding a bicycle, mister. Protect the environment. Don't drive that SUV or Range Rover, you douchebag. Right? Every single guy out there needs to own a luxury car because, again, it is a representation of your success. And you guys who've actually owned these cars, you can verify, right? The very first time that you got your very first expensive car, whether it was a Mercedes, a Benz, Beamer, Range Rover, Lambo, you guys who are at that level, Ferrari, right? When you got your first luxury car and you sat in it and it was yours, you remember that feeling. You're like, I made it, right? I did it. Especially if it's a car that you busted your ass for. Maybe you built a business. Maybe you worked up in your job. You climbed the corporate ladder and you finally got there and now you got this like badass car. And you're like, wow, I made it. And you smell that car. It's like, I feel successful, you know? You guys who drive like a Mercedes, I remember I got my first Benz and I just felt important, right? I just felt good. I just felt like I was doing better than everyone else, right? That's the feeling like a Benz really gives you, by the way, right? And I've had that feeling with other cars after, but it wasn't the same as my first one, right? I remember the first time I sat in my Mercedes Benz that I bought when I got my corporate job. And nobody in my family had ever owned a Mercedes, right? It was like something that we always talked about, right? It was always like, wow, only rich people can buy this car. You know, my dad and I would always stop when we were driving and he'd stop and he'd look. I'm like, what are you looking at, Dad? He's like, look at that Mercedes. You know, I remember being a kid. I'm like, yeah, it's nice. And he was like, do you know how much that costs? And I had no clue. I'm like, oh. And he's like, okay, so our car right now, he's like, basically that car is worth 10 of our car. Like we would need 10 of our car right now in a station wagon. We'd need 10 of these to even come close to affording that. I was like, really? Why is it so expensive? For successful people is what he would say. And I just remember the first time I got my Benz, it's like, oh, wow. You know, you just feel great. Even when I drive my Land Rover, right? Land Rover, these days, these cars go from anywhere from 80 to 100 grand. They're not cheap, right? And these are very nice cars. I know I get a lot of haters from time to time, like, oh, I bet, you know, you're on the side of the road with that Land Rover, right? You got a tow truck following you. And it's like, no, actually, the Land Rover's been hands down the most reliable car I've ever owned, right? The Land Rover's been great. It's never left me on the side of the road. And all I've really had to do is the regular maintenance. And I always tell guys, like, the reason why, like Land Rover, for example, gets such a bad rap is because, you know, too many douchebags buy them. I hate to say it, you know. I don't know, maybe I'm classified as that, but douchebag in a way where they drive them rough, they don't service them, you know, they just don't take care of them. Then they're like just like baffled when the car leaves them on the side of the road. It's like any car will do that too if you don't service it, dumbass, right? But I service my Land Rover all the time. I do all the maintenance, the regular service. Another secret trick to keeping that car on the road is, in the mornings, let the engine warm up for at least 5 to 10 minutes. Don't just get in and take off. Let the engine warm up for a good 5 to 10 minutes. You know, just start it. You know, you could go out to your garage, start it, and then go in your house and do a few things before you leave, right? And that way the engine warms up and it won't start knocking on you early or anything like that. But I've been driving that car everywhere. It's never left me on the side of the road. It's awesome. You know, they talk about gas mileage too. The gas mileage is actually pretty good. But even in that car, you can notice in my Range Rover, the times I've shot in it, the seats are very high. They're very thick. They're made of real leather, not this pleather that a lot of cars are made out of, like their interior. No, it's actual leather. It's actually got like wood grain panels on the interior. It's so nice. Like every girl I get in my car is like she's impressed, right? Like the last girl I took out, she's like, I don't even like SUVs, but man, this car is like really, really like luxurious. I love it, right? But even driving the Range Rover, even today, it's like, wow, I still feel good. Because everybody else is driving around their like average man's car, their Toyota or their Hoopty or their Honda. You know, I'm not putting those cars down, by the way, but I'm saying, like when you get to a level of success where you can afford a luxury car, right? Like a luxury car that you know most people can't afford, you will feel that much more important, okay? You will feel that much more important. And I'm not saying, oh, you need this to feel complete as a man. Don't take it out of context. Because a lot of haters will take my shit out of context and make themselves feel good. Like, oh, see, he said you can't feel like a man unless you have this car. You can't feel happy unless you have this car. No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying it adds to the spice of life, right? Adds to the spice of life. Like dating a beautiful woman. Do you need her in order to feel good about yourself? No. But dating her adds to that spice of life, right? Do you need to put spices on your food and condiments? No. But it adds to that spice. Makes it taste that much better. And driving a luxury car around makes you feel that much more better about yourself. That much more important and that much more successful. So at some point in your life, every single one of you should be at a level where you are successful enough, financially successful enough to be able to afford a luxury car, okay? Because I want you to experience what that's like to drive one, to own one, to be able to afford one, to be able to afford the maintenance. A lot of it is maintenance too, because maintenance on these cars ain't cheap. I took my Land Rover in for dealer servicing and they just did like a basic service on it. It was like over like almost $1,500 for a basic service. It's like servicing a Lambo almost. And a matter of fact, where I bought my Land Rover, it's actually in conjunction with Lamborghini. So when I take my Land Rover in for servicing, there's tons of brand new Lamborghinis on the showroom floor. There's tons of Lamborghinis like in the service department. When I picked up my Land Rover last time, there was like 2 Lamborghinis parked side by side next to my Land Rover, right, waiting to be picked up. So I went to pick up my Land Rover, and then, you know, here are these 2 Lamborghinis right next to my my Range Rover. But even then, picking up my car, I'm like, wow, look at this, you know, this is awesome. I'm still like a little kid about it. Every single one of you guys, I want you to experience that. So I want you to become successful enough to where at some point in your life, you're able to afford a luxury car, drive it, and experience that. Okay, the number 2 type of car that every man should own is a muscle car, right? When I say muscle car, mostly I'm talking about Corvette, Dodge Challenger, Camaro, right? Those would be more of the more modern muscle cars today. And I know there are other fast cars out there, but I'm just saying muscle cars, right? I'm talking about American muscle cars just because they tend to be very big, very loud, very like, right? Or you need to put some muscle into it. That's why they call them muscle cars. I'm more of a fan of the 60s muscle cars, right? Late 60s, early 70s, because those are the cars that I grew up with. Those are the cars that me and my buddies used to toy around with. My best friend back then in high school, his name was Eddie. He had a 69 Camaro, right? He bought a 69 Camaro. I remember we pulled the engine from it. We both like just tore it apart, put it back together. And my very first car was a 68 Corvette Stingray, right? That was my very first car that I crashed because I was drag racing. But I had a muscle car growing up, and these cars were cars that we had to work on ourselves. I remember my dad was like, gave me my car and gave me a little tool set. And he was like, if you ever get stuck, here's these tools. I'm like, what'd I do? And he's like, take it apart. I'm like, okay. And if I had a kid of my own today, I would do the same thing. I would buy him kind of like a late 60s, early 70s muscle car, even though these things are expensive now. It's not like back when me and my buddy Eddie were getting these cars. We'd find them for like a couple of grand, like $2,000-$3,000, and we would buy them and fix them, right? My Corvette, my dad, we picked that up for like $8,500, and my dad had to work like double shifts to buy that car for me, so I really felt bad when I crashed it. Even to this day, I feel horrible. But he bought that car for me because it's something I really wanted. But you know, nowadays you can't get that kind of a Corvette for like $8,500. I mean, it's like worth 3-4 times that amount, right? But these are the cars that I grew up with, that I learned to fix on my own, right? I learned to tinker with it, and I mean, every man should be able to work on his own car. I mean, I understand the new cars with the computers, it's a harder. I don't really do a whole lot of work on my Land Rover myself. I might do little things. I might like change the battery, or I had to replace like the hood latch alarm recently, and Land Rover wanted to charge $800 to do it. So I bought the part for like 130 and I installed it myself, right? I saved like $700 because I'm able to do a lot of these little things myself, which is why it's important for, as a man, that you learn how to work on your own car, right? I mean, I don't bother changing my own oil or anything like that anymore. I just don't have time for it. I will just leave it at Land Rover and let them do the oil change. I just don't have time to deal with it. But it's something that men should learn how to do. And when you have a muscle car, you want to be able to work on a lot of the little things yourself, especially these older ones, which is why I like them. Like right now I have a 65 Corvette. I work on that car almost entirely on my own, just because I enjoy it. I have a mechanic. If something major happens, I hire the mechanic to take care of it, right? But most of it I'm able to work on myself, not because I can't afford to get it fixed, obviously. You know, I mean, I'm doing well right now, but sometimes I just like to tinker with it on my own, right? Sometimes I just like to fix it on my own. Like same with the Land Rover, when the hood latch alarm needed to be replaced. It was like $800, I mean, I knew automatically, I'm like $800 for this part that I could do myself. I just phoned up the parts department and I ordered one and I had it sent to my house, and I literally installed it in half an hour. And I'm like, I just saved $700, right? Because I know how to do these little things, as you should, right? But you learn them from working on your own cars. But a muscle car is something every man should own because it's a tough car, right? Muscle cars are just tough, man. They're just tough. I even got like a 77 Firebird Trans Am over here. This was kind of like late in the muscle car era. This is one of the last of the muscle cars. But yeah, I have a bunch of these die casts throughout my house, but this is one of my favorite ones. But this is a car that you would obviously be able to work on yourself, you know? And it's a car that looks tough. It doesn't look anything like the cars today, right? I mean, if you look at what most men are driving, it's sad. Like most guys these days are driving these girly men cars, right? They might be driving like a Volkswagen Rabbit, like a Volkswagen Cabriolet or some shit, or a smart car, or a Toyota Prius, or an electric car, or a hybrid car, right? And it's like, man, I think I saw one that looked okay though. I think it was a Chevy Volt. Okay, because I have a buddy who has a Chevy Volt. That one actually doesn't look so bad, like as far as electric cars go. But most guys, man, with the Prius and the, you know, and the little girly man cars that are like feminist indoctrination shit has like made its way into the automotive industry and produce all these like pussified cars, right? Whereas I just don't think men should be driving those kind of cars. Those are girls' cars. Right? And back in the day, when I was growing up in high school, I mean, we would have called you out too. We would have been like, man, that's a girly man car. That car is gay. All my friends that I went to school with back then, they had like Mustangs, Camaros. I had another buddy who had a Dodge, like an older Dodge Challenger, like a 71 or 72 Dodge Challenger. So at some point in your garage, right, assuming you have the means, every guy should have at least one muscle car, right? One muscle car. So one luxury car, one muscle car. And I've got actually both. I've got the Land Rover and I've got the Corvette Stingray in my garage. So I wouldn't tell you guys this if I wasn't living it myself. You've got to have both of those. Also too, more importantly, you got to get a stick, right? You got to get a stick shift, a manual. Back then, the manuals came in 4-speed, right? That's all you really needed was a 4-speed. My Stingray's a 4-speed, right? The newer cars, they're like a 6-speed, right? You would have a 6-speed. If you go to like an 80s IROC or 80s Mustang GT, it would be a 5-speed, okay? And I did have an IROC for a few years. And I love that car too, by the way. It's fun to drive. And that was also a stick shift with T-tops. Got to get T-tops, man. You got to have T-tops if you want to complete the look. But T-tops and stick shift transmission. I hate paddle shifters, okay? I despise paddle shifters. Lately, I've been looking for a Lamborghini Gallardo, and like overwhelmingly, most of them that I've been looking at come with paddle shifters. I cannot stand paddle shifters. I think they're gay. I don't like using them. I want to feel the stick. I want to put my foot on the clutch and go whoosh, whoosh. I want to do that shit, okay? Because it's something that men do, okay? I like feeling that I can control the car. I don't like this paddle shifter shit. It's just, I think it's gay. That's my own personal opinion. I don't like it. So get a car with an actual stick shift in it. But like I said, I'm looking for a Lamborghini Gallardo right now, and overwhelmingly, they all come with paddle shifters. And now the third and final car that every man should own, and this is gonna be the easiest car to get on your list, is every guy should have at least one beater car, okay? So you should have one beater car, and I've got a beater car too, right? I've had a Jeep Cherokee Laredo, like a much older one, and it's actually a lot of fun to drive. I had a 92 Jeep Cherokee Laredo for the longest time that I just bought so I could take my dogs out in, right? So I had that for a while. I also had an older Jeep Grand Cherokee, like a 2000, that I would just take my dogs out in. Because obviously I don't, I mean, I take cash out in the Land Rover. You see, I shoot videos with them in there. But most times I just like to take the beater car just because if I'm going to run errands and like buy groceries and shit, I'm not gonna take my Corvette there. I'm not gonna leave in the parking lot. I don't even like to take my Land Rover, right? Because a lot of the parking spaces in California, especially in the major cities where I am, they're like super tight. And I notice, man, a lot of these chicks could give a shit. It's always a chick most of the time. Give a shit less. They'll open their door on your car like, whoop, and you'll hear it, right? And it's like, if some chick ever did that, open the door on my Stingray or my Land Rover, oh, I would lose it. I was like, I would let her have it, man. So you gotta have at least one beater car. So I have one beater car that I just run errands in, and I take my dogs out, like I take cash out in, and my, I load up the groceries in, or if I'm like buying stuff at Home Depot and I want to load, I'm gonna put that in my beater. I'm not gonna load in my Land Rover. So you gotta have at least one beater car, okay? And sometimes this might have to be your first car. If you're young and you're, just working a fast food job or Best Buy or something like that, you're not even in college yet, or maybe you're in college, you're just starting out. You can't afford the nicer car. You can't afford the muscle car. You can't afford the luxury car. You gotta settle for the beater car. So if you gotta settle for the beater car, that's okay. Okay, make sure it's something that you can work on. Make sure that it's something that is at least somewhat manly, right? You could get a Camaro from the 80s with a few $1,000s. You don't need that much money, or even the 90s. You could get a lot of these third generation Camaros. No, they're fourth generation. A lot of these fourth generation Camaros are, from the 90s, are still pretty affordable, right? They're only a few $1,000s. And those are cars that you can work on yourself. And if I had a son and he had a few $1,000s, I would be like, okay, let's just find you a really clean Camaro, maybe a first owner car. Let's make sure it's a stick. Let's try to get one with T-tops, because I want you to be able to get some babes in your car. Let's find that, right? And then that way I would get him that 90s Camaro, and then just give him a toolbox like my dad did, and said, hey, when this breaks, you'll be able to fix most of it. And if it's anything major like transmission, engine, that's beyond your skill set, then we can bring it to a mechanic. But I would want him to learn how to work on his own car. Not just for the masculine aspect of working on your own car, but I would want him to establish that type of discipline, right? I would want him to have that discipline no matter how successful he gets in life. Right? Because even with the Land Rover, I mean, my business is doing well. I could have just left that at the dealership, had them replace the hood latch alarm, $800. I mean, still a lot of money, but it was enough to where I was like, I can do this myself. It's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal, right? And I did. Oil changes on that car, it's a little more complicated, right? And I don't like to mess with it, and I just don't have time for it, right? Because then you have to go find a place to dump the oil and all that. That's just something I don't want to deal with, right? I'll pay you to do it, you take care of it. But yeah, if I had a kid and we had to get him a beater car, I would start him off with a 90s Camaro. That's just me personally, what I would do, right? I would not want him to get let me get you a Honda Civic because it's reliable. No, okay? I would want him to have some car issues. I would want him to break down once in a while and then learn how to work on his own car. Learn what it's like to be stuck on the side of the road. I would shy away from getting him a girly man car, and it is gonna hurt his game, because women, although a lot of them don't really know a whole lot about cars, they can tell when you're a guy who's driving basically a car that is designed to be economical and, safe for the environment. As much as they rah-rah and cheerlead for that, that does not build any sexual attraction with them. You know, what builds sexual attraction with them is you being a man, doing manly things. And a lot of times, manly things these days are gonna be seen as toxic. It's gonna be seen as politically incorrect. It's not gonna be good for the environment. But, you know, all that stuff has been disproven, by the way, okay? It's completely been disproven. But yeah, the third car you wanna have is a beater car, and just because it's a beater car doesn't mean it has to be a girly man car, okay? It can easily be a manly man's car, right? A car that a tough guy would drive. A car that will look tough and make you feel tough, okay? It doesn't have to be a girly man car. So those are the three type of cars that every man should own at some point in his life, if not all at the same time. Because right now I've got all three outside my house. Right? I've got the Land Rover in the garage, I've got the Stingray in the garage, and then I've got the beater car parked out on the sidewalk. And that's the great thing about the beater car is you don't really care too much about it. Right? You could just like leave it where you need to leave it and then just jump in when you need to jump in. It's not a big deal. Okay, but those are the three type of cars that you should own, if not all at the same time at some point in your life. So I'm gonna wrap up here. Until next time, this is Matt Cross from Alpha Male Secrets. Don't forget to smash that like button below. Also hit that notification bell right next to it so that you are notified whenever I release a brand new coaching video here on YouTube. More importantly, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Too many of you guys are still not yet subscribed to my channel. So please make sure you subscribe. It's free, it doesn't cost anything. That way, whenever I upload a brand new coaching video to YouTube, you will be the first to know about it, right? You will get it first before everyone else. You won't have to like dig around on YouTube or dig around my channel to try to find it. Instead, you will get it fresh as I upload it the very same day, right? And again, it's free, it doesn't cost anything. All you need to do is subscribe to the channel, okay? So hit that subscribe button now. I really appreciate it. And for you guys who want to support my work and all of this red pill content I'm teaching guys here on my channel, the best way to do that is by becoming a premium subscriber of my premium Alpha Male Secrets channel, which I am hosting on a private platform away from YouTube, just to protect my content in the event that YouTube decides to demonetize all my videos or shut me down completely one day. I have my premium channel, which is again on a private platform, and in order to access my premium content, you must be a premium subscriber, okay? And to become a premium subscriber, it's only $1, okay? So it's $1 for the entire first month of premium content, right? And to take advantage of it, all you need to do is click that link below in my description box. It will take you over to my website where you can get signed up right now. It just takes 2 seconds. And like I said, it's only $1. Who can't afford $1? It's only $1, so please do that. Really appreciate it, and I will see you in my next coaching video. Yeah, you guys curious about the shirt? There you go. I was wearing my Maverick shirt in the last coaching video, I believe. So this one's, I'm actually headed out to the beach. Yeah, it's probably one of the more douchey shirts that I have, but make it work. Sun's out, guns out. And behind me here is my 77 Trans Am Firebird, call it the Freedom car. You can see that the logo is the same that was on my phone. Since I got a lot of guys who are like, that's the Rising Phoenix Illuminati symbol. It's like, no, dumbass. It's from a 77 Firebird Trans Am. Right? If you guys actually know about cars, you would know that. But instead, these dudes are like driving Priuses and smart cars and electric cars and hybrid cars, so they don't know anything about muscle cars, like real men's cars, right? Me and my friends used to tinker with these cars when we were in high school. Used to buy them cheap, fix them up, sell them, drive them, drag race them. But now they're just worth way too much these days, like going for crazy, crazy amounts at auctions and whatnot. So you can't buy them cheap like we used to. But yeah, 77 Firebird Trans Am.